welcome to First Comes Love, Then Comes Marriage podcast. My name is Lindsey Jackson.
And I'm Aaron Jackson.
And I just want to say thank you for coming back week after week, joining us, continuing on this relationship journey. This week, we are going to recap the last episode that we had with Pastor Jordan Allen. It was so full of a lot of wisdom and jewels. I want to talk about what I got from it.
Okay, what you pulled
and
what I pulled from it.
Yes. Yes.
And so the conversation was about premarital counseling.
Yes.
Pre-marriage classes, as we grew up knowing it to be called, and I think it's like before you say I do.
Yes.
So one of the first things that I took from it was the question that you asked was like, when do you think the person should go to a premarital class, right? And he said, before you get engaged, which is interesting to me because I'm like, no, in my head, I was like, okay, I asked her, she says yes, and then we go to these classes, see if we want to get married.
Yes.
But he was basically like, you can avoid so much stuff if you just, take the class before, even if you're thinking about getting married. So I thought that was one of the first quick hitters that I was like, oh, that's very interesting. That he was like, if you're even thinking about if you're thinking about marriage before you get married, look up a premarital class.
Yeah, because the purpose of premarital classes is to get you to understand your person better. And I think that when he was saying, I said, okay, that makes sense, because most of the time, once you propose, you're already on the trajectory of marrying that person. And you've told loved ones, families, and friends, they're like, did you set a date? You're looking at venues. And so, like, the classes are kind of secondary, third. They're not even like the focal point.
Yeah.
You're just kind of probably doing them so that maybe the church or whatever you're doing can actually marry you, but you're not doing it to get to know the other person. And I think that's a great point. In reality, I don't know how many men, because he gave an example, how many men would willingly go to what is called a premarital class without having to first propose to the woman. That's me. I'm not sure. What do you think? Do you think that your friends...
It's interesting because it's like, if I go through this class and like you said, it's not a pass or fail. It is, did you complete the class? So if I went through this class, I would feel more inclined to be getting a yes, because we were together 12 years when I proposed.
Yes.
And I was still nervous about that yes. Right? I was super nervous about that yes. So I feel like that kind of eliminates, if you go through the class with somebody, you're a little bit less nervous about the yes. I mean, you probably still have to set up your whatever corny proposal you got in your head, but having that yes it kind of is a stress reliever.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. But the other thing I'm like, when we were dating and we used to talk about marriage, I used to have a saying. It was like, let's not talk about these things. And every time you would mention it, I'd be like, let's not talk about these things. Even though I was thinking about it in my head, I didn't want to put more pressure on our relationship.
Right.
And the conversations that we had when it was let's talk about these things were after I proposed. So I feel like maybe I set myself up, because I was like, oh, I don't really know. I can't really gauge where she is. But if a man is willing to do it and he's serious about getting married, then I feel like, yeah, go ahead. Some men around like my age, I'm 35, they are looking for wives. Like, when a man is looking for a wife,
right,
he's looking for a wife. Even with Emily, that's how we're setting up the season, with like, you're dating first, and now we're doing premarital, and then we're going to go into marriage. And so when I feel like when a man is looking for a wife, he's very intentional. And setting up and going to a premarital class is an intentional thing that I think, would be nice. It would probably save you from a headache.
Absolutely. And that's the point of it all. It's like this is all in preparation. You don't know what life has for you. And he said this. He was like, marriage is sickness and health
Yeah.
and richer or poor. And you don't know through jobs, through every situation, but it is a preparation so that, and this is something that he said that I loved. He said the good times are going to handle themselves.
Yes.
Hopefully the good times are preparing you for those tough times that life is going to have. And so that's what this is about. But the one thing that I did get from everything that he said that I thought was so funny, because it's in my orbit right now, like it's talked about around me, is birthing order.
Yeah.
I was like, really? You all pay so much attention to this? So when we were dating, I knew your family and I knew that he's the baby of 5. I say this all the time. I don't even say youngest of 5, because after you have so many kids, it's like you're the baby. You will forever be the baby of your siblings, of your mom, of your dad. Like, you're the baby of 5. But I didn't pay attention to how it would affect our relationship. And he was like, this is important because this is how you all are going to kind of act in the households, like the attitudes or the chores or whatever it is, how you speak to each other. Like, birthing order is really important. And I hear it from my friends, but I was like, oh, wow, okay, that makes sense. So I'm a middle child, and I'm thinking, how does that affect you? Or how, like how...
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't know what everyone means.
Right.
But I do know that, like, with my family, there's 5 of us. I'm the youngest. I'm the second boy. So I'm like the double youngest. And because there's also the youngest girl, who was older than me, but she's the youngest girl.
Right.
And it's interesting because when me and my siblings are very tight knit. We have a great relationship. I have a great relationship with all of them, which is great. I praise God for that relationship. I'm very happy for it. And I really want my sons to grow up, and like, I see my brother as a friend, and I see my sisters as friends, along with siblings. So I just feel like, but when we're together, there is clear positions.
Yes.
Even though we're adults. And that's why I told you, I said, my family can't be together for more than like 7 days in the same house. Because even though I'm the baby of the family, in my family, I'm the man of the house here.
Yes.
So, like, sometimes I might be a little bit less alpha when I'm around my big sisters and my big brother and everything, and I kind of let other people take the lead. But here I'm the man of the house, so I'm being alpha. But there I'm not. But after a while, I'm like, I need to show my alpha,
right?
And then that's where the head button goes. So we know where we are, and with your family, I guess since you're a middle child, the independence in you, I mean, even with you dancing is more like I know it's an ensemble, but it's more like a solo sport.
Yeah.
It's more like a tennis player in the way that you can do things on your own by yourself, the way you can work out by yourself with no, and I'm like, I need people around. You're like, no, I'm cool. It's an interesting thing that I've learned, but I didn't think of it as a birth order thing. I thought it as a Lindsey thing.
Right. But now, like, even in conversations, I'm like, okay, I could see how that can affect the relationship. Yeah. Like, one of my girlfriends was like, I definitely asked what's his birthing order while they were dating. And I was like, I would not even think of that to be a question on a date, because it wouldn't be to me like, oh, you're the oldest? Okay, let me, because, I'm okay.
Oh, like, people were like, what's your sign?
What's your sign?
No, I'm out of here. I gotta go.
Yeah. Don't match. So, but it was one of the things that was talked about, and it might be one of the things that does come up in marriage. So, it's something that might come up in the premarital classes, because if you're the youngest, and I'm the middle, if you need people, I'm just saying, and I don't need people, it might be, if you don't pick up your after yourself chores and I'm constantly picking up, it might cause conflict. And so then just being aware of those things will say like, okay, well, you know what? We'll have to be extra careful about our words or about how we handle that situation, just knowing your upbringing and my upbringing. And I was like, oh, Okay, I never thought about that. So I said, okay, let me think about that a little bit more.
I think the main focus when it comes to that is the word awareness.
Yeah.
Like being aware of your person's history and how they interact. That was probably like my biggest takeaway from that. It's like, I know how she acts around these people. If she's given in this situation, I can kind of know how she reacts. And that's, we did an episode, probably like season 2, about chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I developed chemistry, because I know you. I know what you would do if it wasn't me, but you were in a certain situation, which I know what you would do if I am with you in a certain situation.
Yes. Case in point, I'm always like, when we go out to eat and something is happening and someone says something to me, if I'm by myself, I might not be as bold as if I'm with you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're always, like you said, you're pretty good at observing my like isms.
The isms. Yeah.
The isms.
Yeah. Like, does your partner know your isms?
Yeah.
That's the question. And if you get married or you're engaged and you're about to get married and some isms pop up, that could derail a whole engagement. Yeah. Like my leaving socks everywhere ism.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it could. But that goes back to knowing your person through seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that like that was a key component to the premarital counseling, because he brought up somebody who, they met each other and they got married and within a couple of months and things like that. And then a year or so after they got married, unfortunately, they were no longer together because they didn't know each other and they didn't have the tools to get to know each other even and to figure out how to work together. Because to me, it's longevity, right? And so it's not about you, like, nobody got to stay together for 12 years like us. I mean, we're high school sweethearts, but it is about getting to know each other through different circumstances.
Yeah.
And that can happen over 5 months. I'm not saying it can't, but it's figuring those things out,
Perfect. Yeah. I completely agree with that. And I like that you brought up, because he was like, yeah, they met for a month, they got engaged, they went to class, and we were like, hey, what was the 3? It was like 3 results for the class. It was,
they're ready to get married.
Boom, that's one.
They could get married. They just have some things to work on.
Work on this.
Maybe how he speaks, maybe how she does things, and they're not ready to get married.
The couple is not ready to get married.
The couple is not ready
So
to
he
get
wasn't
married.
saying that you're not, as a person, individual, are not ready to get married. It's just like you're not ready to get married to the person that you're with.
Yeah, and that happens.
Yeah.
That's exact. And most of the times it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe we're not supposed to be married. And he said this, maybe we're supposed to be friends and we came into each other's lives for this specific reason. But I'm ready to get married. Now I know, especially after the class, I'm ready to get married to someone else.
Yeah.
So let me keep searching. Let me keep
that
dating.
does happen, and it's it's different for you and I because we're happily married and we've known each other all our lives. But I have seen instances of people who were dating, didn't thought that this was the person that they were marrying, end up not marrying that person, like dating for somebody 10 years, going to the next person, and then marrying that person and having a happy marriage.
Yeah.
I've seen it a lot. I mean, I guess when you're with a lot of like high school and college sweethearts, you know the stories. Because people know about us, we know each other since 3rd grade. But then I also know about people who's like, oh, we've known each other since college. And for us, college was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so they've been together 10 years and was like, oh, yeah, I broke up with this person. And now I'm with him and we're engaged. Because it was like all the preparation.
Yeah.
And now I'm ready for this. And this is a person that's more compatible. I can adjust more. I can pivot. I'm ready to learn. And sometimes when people are together so long and they're stuck in their ways, there is no give and take. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, this is who I am. You knew who I was. And the fact that people aren't adjusting, that's one of the key things in our relationship. I loved you at 15, but I also love you at 35. But that's a 20-year difference. So I had to learn how to love you differently for 20 years of me learning how to love you differently.
What did Pastor A.R. Bernard say? He said, adapt and adjust.
Yeah.
There's two things you need in marriage to adapt and adjust. Yeah.
And that's what it is. So those are my key things. Welcome to the Am I Wrong segment of First Comes Love, Then Comes Marriage podcast. This one is very topical. This is a part of the show where I say a situation and you tell me if I'm wrong or if Lindsey's wrong. So what happened was we went to the movies. It was a date night and I took Lindsey to go see Creed 3. It's out in theaters. It came out last week, so this Friday will be like a weekend. And we're watching it, and she's, she doesn't like the fighting parts or anything like that. But in all like boxing movies or sports movies, there's a montage. A montage is just different clips of the training. And Lindsey was having a full conversation in her head that she didn't know, and she was doing the ad-libs like, oh. At one of the parts, she said, well. I was like, what is going on? And she's like looking at these super muscular men doing all this, and she was basically like catcalling them, and without catcalling them. She was like, oh, and her face was like this, and she like moved, and she's in my arm, and she moving around like, ooh, ew. I'm like, what is going on over there? So I felt like it was a little inappropriate. I said, I'm right here. Your bed is right here. I was like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And also, side note, Jonathan Majors was not on her list. And then I had a conversation with her. She was like, well, after that movie, he's like top 3. Yes, you did say that. I said, oh, okay. So, am I wrong? If I'm taking you out to a movie, and there are attractive men, Denzel, whoever it is, Michael B. Jordan's the it thing, Jonathan Majors, shouldn't you at least control yourself a little bit? Have some self-control while you're with your man.
Okay, y'all. Okay. First of all, Jonathan Majors did do his thing in that movie. Okay, I was not a fan. I was not on, I didn't know about him, and great job.
And now you know?
And now I know, y'all. But I didn't, like I said, I didn't know I was audible.
You about to dig deeper.
I didn't know I was audible with it. So if I was, I do apologize. I do think that we can appreciate work ethic, okay? And so what I saw there on that screen as a dancer is someone who takes care of their body, okay? Michael B. Jordan, okay? Jonathan Majors. So I appreciate that. Now, I would never want to make my man feel any type of way. So that's number one. But, just appreciating the movies, I think I'm okay in that, y'all. So you can definitely let him know he's wrong and I'm good. You can DM us, Instagram, TikTok, First Comes Love, TCM.
You can call the voicemail at 412-LOVE-POD. That is 412-5683-763.
You can email us, let's talk at firstcomeslove.thenComesMarriage.com. Welcome back, y'all. We are still talking about premarital counseling and everything like that. And actually, we brought out our book because this is the book that we use. We talked about how we actually did not go through premarital counseling as far as a class is concerned before we got married. And it's not something that we specifically made a choice about because we were in New York and we were here and we were there, and I think maybe the timing just didn't work. It wasn't like it, we were for or against. It just, the timing didn't happen.
The interesting thing is, for us, it's way before the pandemic, right? So, during the pandemic, they had the virtual classes. Back then, people weren't doing virtual classes like that.
This
in
is
our
2013.
Church.
Yeah.
No, 2013.
Yeah.
And so, but Lindsey had a really has a really close relationship with the pastor of our church, or the former pastor of our church, and he he sat down with us and he had a conversation. And also, Lindsey's mom is a family and what is it called? Family and marriage therapist.
Yeah.
So,
but either way, we did want to do something because we knew that we wanted to be prepared beyond our own understanding. And I think that's the point. Like, you know a lot. You got some things that you're like, okay, I love this person and I think I'm ready. But there are some things that you just don't know. I mean, whether you think you do it, you can't know everything. So we got this book. My mom gave me this book, and getting ready for marriage workbook. First of all, I like workbooks. I like to journal. I like to write. And this has, even looking through it, this is ours. There are things in here that prepared us, questions, true or false, writing in responses, questions that I would answer for him and then ask him and see if I got it right. Really good stuff. And Pastor Jordan Allen said there's a book, which we have to check it out, but communication, sex, and money. The three things that are vital to marriage, that if any one of them is off kilter, the relationship is a little rocky. And this book actually has those 3 points in them specifically. So you want to do a little something?
Yeah, let's look at the workbook.
Okay.
So this is the book, and we turn to the page, and this page says communication on it.
Yeah.
And it's like a his worksheet and a hers worksheet, and like it's true or false questions. So you want to read this one?
Okay. It is important to me that you hug me at least once a day.
True.
We both wrote true, and that was correct.
That was correct.
But these are so questions you never would think to ask, because they're like, yeah, but there might be times in the relationship where like, oh, I don't want to touch and I don't want to hug, and you're like, but we said that we did, and then it's a conversation about it. So, okay, let's see. What is this one? Attitudes.
Attitudes.
I need to have private time on a regular basis.
We both said true. But that's not true anymore.
That is, it's not true for who? You or
for
me?
you?
Oh, I need private time on
a
regular
okay, daily basis. Okay, daily basis and regular basis are two different things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then yeah, that's for us. I think it is okay after marriage to see friends of the opposite sex in the evening time. We both put false.
And I think that that's true. I mean,
you said it's true that it's false, or
I think it's okay.
I think it's okay to see friends of the opposite sex in the evening time. Yes, that's fine.
That is fine. But when we wrote it, we said false. We was like, nope. But that was our idea about marriage. It was probably like, you're mine and I'm yours, and this is us. This is what we have going on right now.
Yeah. And that's so funny because right now I'm thinking as a father of two, I'm like, what time would I see my friends? It has to be the evening
when
time.
Is it right? The evening, right?
Evening? That's like 6 o'clock.
They're specific about opposite sex here, and that's a communication.
But also, my friends are of the opposite sex out here, which is funny. Let's do one more, and just like
money.
Oh, money. Let's do money. Pick one, babe.
Okay, let's see. I think we should make our children save money.
What we put true?
You put false.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, whatever, they're kids. And you put true.
Yeah, because I grew up saving money.
Yeah, no, they'll get their allowance and they'll be fine. And it's interesting because this book is about, 300 pages, 250 something pages?
Yeah. And
Lindsey with her very, notes. Varied notes. I don't want to...
Let me see.
And it goes through... One thing that it really goes through is the history, like we were talking about. The history of your relationships with your parents, your histories with your relationship with your siblings, your favorite cousins, who do you like the least, situations where you were super embarrassed, things like that. So I can get to know Lindsey and get to know Lindsey in all these different types of situations. It talks about things that we never even thought about when it comes to giving money to kids, right? We talk about kids. Oh, do you want to have kids? Okay, that's one step.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the big part. Now it's the intricacies. Oh, do you give allowance, or are they going to
Yeah.
do their
It
chores
says, do
and
you
stuff like?
think kids should have pets? How do you want to discipline them? How do you want to?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a lot of these with the sexual relations that are a lot of different. Yours was true, mine was false. We differed a lot. I think I need to lose weight. How do you feel? Like things you maybe wouldn't even be as vulnerable to talk to your partner about, just to tell them, like, maybe this is how I feel right now. Um, all
And
that to say, what were you going to
I was
say?
going to ask you, um, what doing this worksheet did you think, and talking to Pastor Allen, how important do you think it was for you in your marriage right now? Do you think it was like, what was the significance? What did it really help you prepare, or you
Oh,
think you would have figured it out, or
no, 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 no. Top tier. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because communication is always first, and people say it, and it might be one of those things that you hear, but you don't understand the huge significance of it. But there were things that, like I said, I didn't know to ask. I didn't know. And we both grew up in a two-parent household. So we saw examples of marriage, and yet and still you don't see everything. You don't see what happens. A marriage is between the man and the woman. That's it.
stay out of grown folks' business?
Exactly. So you don't get to see it all. And I definitely feel like that workbook helped us talk about things and also be just more open and honest. Like if you're as completely honest in what your answers are, and I am, then we're having a deeper conversation.
Hmm.
And that prepares us for marriage.
That reminded me. That was an excellent point, and it reminded me of the conversation we were having about the representative. He said in classes, they people send their representative,
Yes.
and that that's going to be hurtful in the long run. And because, like you were saying about the honesty part, if you're open and honest, like, don't do stuff just because you want to do it if it's not going to be right for you. Being open and honest, and I realized that she's not the one that I want to marry, or she's not. We're not gonna. It's not gonna be a good marriage. Then that's gonna be better for me than me trying to uh, be a different person or hold on to things because it. Things build up.
They build. And
Yeah.
you could say, like, you know what, actually, this is going to be difficult. And you can see how difficult is it going to be. If you're saying, like, okay, she says, I want kids. I want a lot of kids. And you're like, I don't really want that many. Or what would happen? One of the questions is if you can't have kids, and then you're thinking like, oh, maybe that won't happen. Or and then one person says they're adopted, and you'll say, okay, I guess. Or but in your head, you really don't think you would want to do something like
Yeah.
that. You have to be honest from the beginning of these very real conversations, because I mean, it's a setup. If
Yeah.
not, like you
Yeah.
said, like if you are being dishonest to please the other person, or if you're saying you might hope things will change, you say, okay, you know what, that doesn't really bother me that much.
Mhm.
He smokes, I'm okay with that. And then 10 years later, you're like, actually, I really thought you would stop,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's something like that. And so that's a setup. And I think that if you're gonna go the route of doing workbooks and classes and all the things, why not be your complete self and come forward with all of the realness?
I think, like my last point out of the whole, premarital thing was when he was talking about the good times and the bad times,
Mm-hmm.
and with the honesty that you just talked about, with the intentions that I talked about earlier, it's kind of like the good times will always take care of itself, and the bad times you have to. You know what? Okay, I just cut myself off, but this is the point I'm really trying to make. Premarital classes is not to make the marriage easy, because marriage is not easy. Marriage is still work, but it is preparing you for those battles. Like, I can go, speaking about Creed, I could go box right now. I could go into the ring and box, and I know how to fight because I've seen people fight and I've gotten into a fight before. But premarital class is still going to be hard. If I train for a fight and go fight, it's still going to be difficult to fight with somebody, but I have the training. I'm more prepared to do something. And we're not saying that marriage is easy, but when you know the person that you're with, and you have your partner, and you know them inside and out, and you're knowing them, and you're learning them, and you're continuously learning, that's another point. This is teaching me how to learn you, right? What questions should I ask? When I'm more prepared for the battle, when I'm more prepared for the bad times, is going to make it worth it, because I know that we could get through it. So that's one of the things that was like my main point when it comes to premarital classes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, thank you for joining us on this recap episode. Go back and watch it. Maybe there's some things that we missed. We love to hear from you, what you got out of it. Any feedback that you have for us, you can always email us. Let's talk at firstcomeslovethenComesMarriage.com.
You could call the voicemail at 412-568-3763.
You can DM us on Instagram or TikTok. First Comes Love, TCM.
And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe.
See you next
Friday.